Hello and welcome to this training session on setting up your GDS software. Now, if you already have GDS, you can pass through this part and get to the section where we start setting up your program. If you do not have GDS, take this time now to download a 30-day free trial of the GDS program, which you can use to do bids with and get comfortable with to see if you want to buy the license on it. Now, go to www.winbidpro.com. Now it's on the screen there for you to see, but go to your computer now and go online and go to that web page. That's www.winbidpro.com. Now that you're there, if you looked at the left-hand column in blue, you'll see the V15 download. If you click that, it'll take you to the V15 download page. Now that you're at the download page, you'll see just down from the top in the middle of the page in blue it says V15 download. It has all the flags for Windows and everything else to the left. If you click that, it will download the software program to your computer. Now go ahead and click it now. When you get the dialog box where it says run or save, run. Click run. It will download. It'll bring up install wizards to put everything in place. Now once you've completed that, pause the video here. Once you've completed that, come back and we'll download the catalog. Okay, now that you've downloaded the program, back on the left hand side of the web page again, underneath the V15 program, you'll see V15 catalogs. Now click on that with a cursor and it'll take you to the catalogs page. Now for the purposes of this training, we're going to download one catalog. You can go back later and download all of them anytime you want. But right now, I want you to download the VistaWall Oldcastle 2011R. Do you see it there? It's on the catalog download page. Click the catalog download in the blue on the left, and it'll take you to the catalog download page. And there you're going to find VistaWall Oldcastle 2011R. When you click that, it'll download and do the same thing as the download through the program. When you get the dialog box, press run, and it will download it to your computer from there. Now pause the video here, and when you've done that, then restart the video. Okay, now that you've downloaded the program and you've downloaded the catalog, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up your GDS for you and go through all the things to set it up so it works especially for you. Now the first thing you're going to do is on your desktop you will see the V15 icon, and you'll have a second icon that says utility. But you want to go to the V15 icon and double click that, and it will start to upload the program on your computer. Now the first thing you're going to get is a login dialog box. Now in that you'll notice that it says guest in the name of the user. If you want to add your name, and if you're doing it, it's good to add your name because when you log in that way, any estimates that you do will have your name on them, so you'll know who did them. If you're working in an office with other people using the program, they'll need to create their own. So if you want to create your own right now, just add a name in the dialog box. Click that. It'll take you to the page to put your name and your password in. And then when you've finished, just click OK, and it'll bring you back to the box. Once you're at the box with your name in it and your passwords in there, you click OK, and the computer then the program then will take you to the first page. What happens first when you click this is the page that will come up will be the vendor page. Now when you get the vendor page, you're going to notice you'll have two vendors because you downloaded VistaWall. You'll also have a sample company. So right now what I want you to do is highlight the sample company, and then down on the bottom right click the button that says select. Okay, now that you've done that, the next thing that will come up will be a job page. Okay, now what you want to do there is go up to the sample job. You shouldn't have anything on there except a sample job. Click the sample job, highlight it, and then go down and click select on the bottom right hand corner. Now what that will do is it will bring up the main page for GDS, and it'll bring up the first elevation or the last elevation that was in that sample. Now what we're going to work from here is setting up everything on the left hand side of your GDS so that it works for you. So I want you to pause the video here until you've gotten that page up. When you have, then start the video again. Okay, now you'll notice on the left hand side up at the top, the first thing you see is help. Now once you've gone through all this training, if you're ever into the program doing a bid and you're not sure how something is supposed to work, click that help page and it will bring up shortcuts and little explanations of everything that you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with arcs, or if you're dealing with rakes or anything like that and you're not sure, then just go down that help page until you find rakes and it'll give you a real quick explanation of how to do everything. So it'll be a good reminder for you. So the first thing is the help. Alright, okay, now that you've got that up, the next thing underneath that is going to be the glass table. And in the glass table is where you have all the glass that you're going to use when you're doing a bid. After you build the elevation and everything, you're going to put glass in it. And this is going to get you your glass list for your glass quote from the glass supplier. So when you open up the glass table, you're going to see that it'll have some things in it already and it won't have much. But when you do open it up, this is what you're going to use when you start doing a bid. One of the first things you're going to do is find out what the glass is and make sure you've put glass in there. So you'll see down at the bottom it says Add New. When you click that, it'll bring up a dialog box that lets you put in all of the parameters for your glass. Now we won't put any in right now because we're not doing a bid. In the next lesson we're going to do a complete bid and we'll go through all of that. But this is where you'll add the glass that you're going to use. And that way you'll always have it there. And when you put the description in, you put a description in that will describe the glass according to the specification. So when you prepare your glass list, when you print your glass list when you're bidding, it will give exact description of what glass that is. And then it'll give the glass supplier the exact sizes and quantities of every piece of glass you need. It's a beautiful thing about this program. Alright, the next thing on that column is the vendors. Now when you click that, go ahead and say OK on the glass table and then click vendors. It'll bring up the vendor list. These are all of the suppliers of metal that you have. Now right now, because you downloaded VistaWall, you're going to have the sample vendor and you're going to have VistaWall. Okay, now select sample vendor and then down the bottom right push the select button. So highlight sample vendor on the bottom right, push the select button. Okay, now you can close that screen now, and underneath that you'll see installing from the web, and then you'll see vendor info. Vendor info is where you go in and put the telephone numbers and email addresses and fax numbers of all the vendors. So if you ever need to print out a list of those, you can, or if you need the information while you're working on it, it's right there for you. So when you open that, you'll see that it gives you the option to put in information on a vendor. Okay. Now underneath that is the framing systems. Now that's all the framing systems for that vendor. So if you click that, it'll bring up all the different framing systems that you have to choose from the catalog for that vendor that you downloaded. And you really don't get into it here because when you start to build the job, you're going to select the vendor, and once you do, it's going to bring up a window for you to select the framing system and to name it so that you're ready to build your first system. But if you ever have to just go through and you want to just look through the framing systems and you're not in an elevation or anything, you can click that and it'll take you to the framing systems, and you see the different ones that you want to use. The entrances and door frames and door leaves is after that, and this is if you want to build an entrance for you specifically. You can go in there and take the part number of the frame and the door leaf and put it in there so that you've got an entrance, so that you can make it whatever size you want it to be. So if you need it to be a 36 by 96, an 8-foot door instead of a 7-foot door, you can make that change there, and it'll change all the part numbers for you. Okay, so framing system for the entrances, doors. You can also deal straight from the elevation pages when you're building your elevation, because it gives you an option to go into those as well. For the purposes of setting up this program, some of these things we won't do now. We'll do them when we are actually building a bid. The next thing on the list is the jobs. Now when you click the jobs, it'll bring up the list of jobs under that vendor. Now under the sample vendor, there's only going to be one job. It's the sample job. But here's where if you had pulled up the vendor VistaWall and you were going to do a bid with VistaWall, it would automatically take you to the jobs menu. If it doesn't, you click the jobs icon on the left there. It'll take you to this jobs menu, and you'll go down and either take a job you've already been working on and bring it back up to finish it, or you can add new. If you see at the bottom, there's a button for add new, and when you click that, it's going to ask you to give the information about the job, and then you'll put the job in and you'll say OK, and it'll bring up that job under that vendor for you to work with the rest of the stuff. Okay, right now we're under the job of the sample job for the sample vendor. So all that's been brought up and you don't have to do anything. But when you add new is when you're going to do a new job. And we'll go through that when we do the bid in the next lesson. Now after jobs, there's the elevation icon. Now this will bring up a list of all the elevations. When you click it, you'll see there's one elevation. It'll give you the basic information about that elevation, and you can actually make changes there if you want to. You can edit those elevations from there. If you find out later you use the wrong framing system or something like that, you can just adjust it there. Now underneath elevations is the elevation framing system, and that'll bring up the framing system for just that elevation. Now if you close out the elevation page and then click the elevation framing, it will bring up a page with 3 tabs across the top. One will show the profiles and the information on the elevation on the framing system you're using. And you'll notice it'll list all types of things down at the bottom where the head goes through the seal, the verticals go through the head, framing and stuff like that goes through the head or doesn't. So that's preset by the framing system you're using. So you don't have to change those, but if you were going to make a change, you could do it right there. Now the next tab at the top is all the stock links. Now you'll notice when you click that, it'll show you in this framing system all of the part numbers that go with the different pieces. Now that's automatically done by the computer, so you don't have to change anything. But if you needed to add something, you notice on each page there's an insert part list. And you right click down at the bottom of this page, you see it in red, it says parts list. You right click on that and it'll bring up the parts list for that elevation system, for that framing system. So if you needed to add stops or something like that, you can find it on the parts list and then select it, and down at the bottom of the page it says insert part, and that's when you've brought up the parts list. Okay, so you can close. After that is all gasket and vinyl material, and the next tab after that are all the screws and other things, miscellaneous stuff that you need. You can do the same thing on each page. If you need to add something, you can add it there. There's also another opportunity to add things when you get further down into building elevations that we'll get into later. But for now, that's what this framing system, elevation framing system, provides you the information for. You should never have to make any changes to it unless you need to. If you've got to add another piece to your jam or your head or something like that, you can add that piece in, okay, here. And it'll put it in all your parts lists and everything. Now the next icon to the left there is Optimizer. This is after you've gone in and built this elevation that you've got, or all the elevations you've got for your project. Then you'll click the Optimizer, and it'll take you into a place where you get all the elevation parts, and then you tell it to optimize, and it'll produce a cut list for you and other things that you might need here. You'll use that when you're bidding, not when you're setting up. Okay, now once you get under that, you're going to see you've run the Optimizer. The parts list is going to be a list of all the parts you need that you're going to send to your supplier to get a quote on. Okay, and underneath that is the final glass. That's going to give you the complete glass list that you need to send to your glass supplier for him to quote. Once you've done all of this, it'll produce these. The computer will produce these lists for you, and then you're able to get everything you need there for that. Now you've got for your benefit, if you had to separate some stuff out, say you had 4 elevations, they were asking you to bring those out if they don't want you to bid it, they want you to bid everything but these 4 elevations, and sometimes you get general contractor asks you to do that. You can do that by just bringing up the elevation parts list, and then you can subtract those quantities from your major parts list, and that'll change how you can take those out real quick, and the computer will still do it. Same thing with the glass list. If you find that that you're going to need to adjust it for some reason like that, then that's what the final glass list, the elevation glass list will do. Now, after that comes labor. Now, this is just the labor report that you're going to do. When you click that, it's when you're doing a bid and you've already produced all this stuff, and you click labor, and it'll bring up a dialog box which tells you to apply the labor that you've set in there, and then process the project for the labor, and then print the final labor report. Now, the markup report is the same thing. This is once you've finished a bid and you've done the labor and everything else. When you click the markup report, it's going to give you a markup report with everything in it, and we're going to go through some defaults down here that's going to help you set this up so that you don't have to keep filling in all the blanks every time when it comes up. But that gets you through the working parts of the bid. Okay, now the last item before you get to print reports is the final summary. Now, the final summary gives you just a basic thing of how many square feet there are, how many cuts you've got, how many joints you've got, and what your prices are at this time. And that just is another added feature that helps you get your bid ready to go. So you can see if there's any discrepancies that you're not comfortable with when you get to there. Alright, so now the next thing here is the print reports list. Now, when you click the print reports list, you're going to come up with a screen that allows you to say whether you want to print. You notice all of them are neither right now. And if you print reports without going in here and changing things, it'll print everything in PDF. Okay? But if you look at the tab next to the bottom there that says Export Options, if you click that, that'll bring up a screen which allows you to say, I want to print my markup report in Excel. And if you click that box, it'll print your markup report in Excel. It lets you print them in PDF, in Excel, Tiger Stop, and lets you do them to GTS files. But mainly you're going to use these because you want to be able to have something to send to your vendors, and you want to have something for your hard copy of your bid when you're backing up everything that you did. So this is a very nice system that lets you change how it's going to print the report out, and it works very well. Next on that is the print list. Now, this is an area where you can go in and say, oh, I want to print a list of elevations, or I want to go print all my cut piece listings, I want to print elevations, or whatever that you decide to print that's on this sheet. You can click the button that says print, and then when you go down to the bottom right, you say print, and it'll print out the reports that you've clicked on there. So it works fairly well for pulling out reports really quickly that you need. Now, on the below that is the shop drawings. Now, the shop drawings just allows you to print out a shop drawing of each elevation. Now, it will not do shop drawings like you'd get from a draftsman, but it will print out the shop drawings of each elevation. It has bubbles. It has everything else that you need. On the shop drawing defaults, if you click that, you'll see it gives you the option to add things to those drawings that you don't have. And you can make them black and white, you can make them in color, you can add the bubbles for the different sections of the framing system. All these things can be done there. And so when you print out your elevations for your field people and for your fabrication, you'll have a detailed elevation of exactly what that thing's going to look like when they finish it, and how they're to build it, and how the cuts are to be made, and everything else. So it's a nice little thing to have, and you get into using that when you do the job, because you're going to print the reports, you're going to print the drawings anyway for your field people once you land the job. Now, we're not going to deal with CAD, because if you know how to use CAD, then you can use the simple CAD programs they've got in here. But I'm not going to be teaching you how to use CAD. The other two things that you're going to use on the left side are the system defaults and the labor defaults. Now, the system defaults will, for when you do your markup report and things like that, you're going to have markup figures and different things that you want to always be the same on your markup report. and you'll put those in there. You also can go in and put all the exclusions that are going to go on your markup report in those boxes at the bottom, and they'll show up every time on your markup report. So when you're getting ready to do your proposal, everything is right there. The labor defaults is something that's going to take a little bit of time for us to do, and we're going to run through them right now. Okay, on your labor defaults, when you click that labor defaults, you're going to come up with a window to say framing and then glazing on the bottom. There's two buttons. So you click the framing man hours, and it's going to bring up a frame labor hours and rates. Okay, now you notice the first one that comes up is screw spline. Okay, now under here you're going to set up what your hourly rate is for fabrication, for miscellaneous, for installation, and for glazing. So every place is different, and your rate you want to put in here is what it's going to cost you in labor cost and burden. So whatever number that is per hour, that's what you're going to put your man-hour rate in there. So you notice there's 4 of them. So you're going to put the fabrication rate, a miscellaneous rate, an installation rate, and a glazing rate. So you'll notice at the top up here in blue it says frame type screw spline. And above that you'll see labor framing types, and there's a little arrow to the right. If you click that, it'll take you to shear block, and then can stick, and then curtain and pressure wall, and then butt glazed, and then impact systems, and others. So if you've got other things you want to put in there, you can. But you need to fix it for each one that you're going to do. Now you can do this every time you start a job and go in and make sure that you've got everything right. Now underneath the labor rates, the $, it says installation labor. Now installation labor is where you're going to put in, and they do this in minutes. So how many minutes in installation does it take to hang a single door with a transom? And if that's 4 hours for you, then that's going to be 4 times 60, which is 240 minutes. So, and a single door with no transom, if it's the same, it's the same. Pair of doors, whatever that's going to be in minutes. If it's 8 hours, that's 480 minutes. If it's 3 hours, it's 180 minutes. But you have to decide how much that is for you. Standard, usually you'd figure 240 for the 2 singles and 480 for each other. So you'd have 240, 240, 480, 480. And then hardware type shouldn't take you but an hour, but you decide how much time you need for hardware. If it's an hour, put 60. Then door adjustment time. Those 10 or 15 minutes probably, but you've got to decide what that is. Now, the time per joint in the second column there is how many minutes it takes you to put a joint together. All right? And then the time per elevation. That's to go ahead and put the jambs and head and seal into the opening. Okay? And then a time per panel. And since you know everything works here on panels, that means between each vertical is a panel. All right, so if you need time to put a panel in, you add it there. And then curtain wall and pressure plating, if you have any of that, you add that there. Perimeter caulking is how many minutes it takes you to do a foot of caulking. And so you determine how fast you work, and you put those numbers in there. This is going to get you an accurate labor count, okay? Now, if you go to the right, you'll see at the top it says fabrication labor in minutes, okay? And so here we are again. If you're going to fabricate the doors, if they come knocked down, you've got to put them together in a shop before you put them out there or in the field. You need to put the times in here for a single door with a transom, single door with no transom. Pair of doors with a transom, pair of doors with no transom. Hardware time, if you need to install any hardware in the field or in fabrication. Fabrication. Now you got over here, you're also talking about cut times. How many minutes does it take you to measure and make a cut? And that's what you're going to put here, how many minutes. And time per joint, if you're going to do any joints in fabrication, you put that that many minutes here. A time per panel, again, is the same thing. Between each vertical is a panel. So if you've got a window with 5 lights in it, that's 5 panels. So a panel is a light. So you need to put in time for that. And time per elevation. And this is in the fabrication process, so you won't have much time for that. But you need to determine how much time it takes your company to do these things. Now, if there's any added vinyl, or if there's any glass cutting has to be done, this is in the miscellaneous install section. Okay. Added caulking, you need to put that in there if there is any. Any structural sealants or anything, you need to put time in. This is all time for what it takes to do those. Clips and putty and things like that, you need to say how much time it takes. Brake metal, same thing, how much time it takes per foot. And miscellaneous elevation labor, you need to decide if that goes in there. Now you need to put all those things in now, or you can put them in when you're doing the job. But now you've done it for screw spline. Now you need to hit that arrow at the top and go to shear block, and you notice everything's not there again, so you got to go in and make all the changes. Okay. And as far as can stick, same thing. So you go to each one of these and make those changes. So now I want you to go through now and make all those changes, how much time it takes for each thing. And you'll know that in curtain wall it takes longer than regular storefront. So you need to get those figures and take them. Otherwise, you can put in standard figures now while you're working with it to learn how to do it, and then as you get more adept at how fast your crews work, you can make changes to this thing. Okay, so after you've done that, just click OK. It'll take it back. Now the glazing section, I would not recommend making any changes to the glazing section. You can if you really know how fast you work, but this is pretty standard in glazing, so I wouldn't recommend any changes, but you can if you want to. And you just bring up the glazing thing and go in and make the changes where you think you want them. Okay. Again, you're talking about the different ones that you're going to do for screw spline and all of that, and the same with for setting the glass in these different sections here. It gives you a different look for each one. Okay. So if you're doing heavy glass, it shows you the times for heavy glass. If you're doing impact glass, it shows you the times. Okay, now that will help you get an accurate labor count, and it's something that you need to do. Once you finish that, then you can close that section there, and the last thing on there is your GDS license. Well, right now you're on a 30-day free trial if you had it, or you have your license, and you bring that up, and it'll just give you the information about your license. Okay, and if you need to manage the license or whatever it is. So now that concludes setting up your GDS software to be ready to use. So the next lesson is we're going to take a bid and we're going to go through the whole thing, and we're going to complete the bid from start to finish. Now I would like to go over in this last bit, this bottom, if you're looking at the elevation panel, on the bottom there are these tabs that there are these tabs at the very bottom that tell you what you're going to do. Like here's a layout, and that's the one that's showing now. If you want to do a splice, and you click that tab, it'll bring up a thing for you to do a splice. Okay, and it tells you how many splices, where you're going to put them. Okay, doors is if you've got an elevation built and you're going to add a door, this is where you'll add the door. And you can add it by entrance, or you can add it by frame, leaf, and frame. Okay. Now, yeah, the next one is unequal panels. So when you're building your panels, it's sometimes they're all the same. Sometimes there's unequal ones in there. They'll tell you what they are, and this is where you make the changes to that. Okay. You just put add. When you click add, it'll tell you where to go. We're going to go through that when we do the bid. Window is another section where you can have a framing system set up, and one of the lights is going to have an operable window in it. So you can place it, there's a window there, so it won't count that glass to your glass total, but it will add labor because you know you're going to have to install a window there. Alright, and then you've got step. Step is the next thing, is if you're going to go, the top of your framing system is going to step up as it goes. The rake is, again, on the top, your framing system is going to go on an angle from one corner to the other. So you put a rake in there that way. The arch is a similar thing. It's going to do an arch. You'll tell it, here you can add an arch. The only problem with the arch right now is it will give you the area, but it won't allow you to put the spars, the verticals, in an arch. So it works okay, but it's not the best when it comes to that. Okay, then you've got a bulkhead. Now let's say that you've got a door, and next to it, it goes down, it's a 7-foot door and it goes to the floor, but on the sides there's going to be like a 10-inch concrete pad. So you need to step up the bottom of the elevation on that one frame. So when you go add on that, it'll ask you what's the bulkhead height, and if you're going to select a panel to say it's only one panel, when you click select a panel, it'll bring it up and say which panel, and you click the box for which panel you want, and then it takes you through, and it'll raise the bulkhead up on that. We'll go through this stuff when we're doing this other bit. Height is the same way if you're going to do it from the top. So it's bulkhead is from the bottom and height is from the top. Next tab is horizontals, and you've got horizontals that you're going to place. And if on this sample bit, if you click the horizontal, it'll show you the horizontals they have in place. This is how you're building your elevation. If you need to add one more, you can. If you need to delete them, you highlight the one you want and click delete. It'll take it out and you put it back in. And the next one is equal horizontals, and it's if you have elevation that has two horizontals in it, but they're equal distance apart. If you just click that and add, it'll say how many do you want. You put the quantity in there, and if it's in all the panels or not, and it'll put them in for you. Okay. Now a split is going to put a vertical within a light. So say at the top of this door you wanted just one little vertical there, then you would click add, and you'd say I want one split, add a quantity of 1 from panel 2 to panel 2, from a height of whatever this height is here at the bottom to the top of the elevation is the other height. And when you do it, it'll put it in. We'll do that when we're doing the other bit. Okay, miter. Miter will miter the corners. If you tell it you want to add miters, it'll show to miter the corners, and it'll adjust it on your cut list and everything. Okay. Now if you need to add stops, this is where you do that. Stops is the next one. Alternate vertical. Let's say that this on the elevation you're looking at, the last panel is actually on 90 degrees turn, and you needed to add a corner post there. If you click add, you tell it as article order, the verticals start at 0 on the left, and it's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, even though there's 5 verticals. So you would go to vertical 4, and you would say that's going to be 4 inches now. And then when you did that, it will bring up a parts list for you to go in and pull that part number. And when you insert it, it'll automatically add it to all your other lists. Okay. Now exclude is a good one too, because let's say that your vertical is not going to go all the way to the top over here, or your butt glazing in this one section. Then you would say I want to add an exclusion. When it is, it'll say put the cursor on the one you want and left click it, and when you do, it'll exclude it, but it'll still cut the glass up into those smaller sizes. And then the last one, of course, is the glass, which when you click it, it's going to bring up your glass table, and you're going to put the glass in. Now the only thing I'll tell you about this is as you start doing bids, you always want to do these in the order that they are. So don't do the layout and then decide, okay, we'll put the horizontals in, then I'll go back and put a door in. Because it might mess up some of the things you're doing. So you need to do them in order as you go, okay? Then you bring it back to layout, and you're there. Now, I hope this helps you get your system set up so that you can start using it. In the next lesson, we are going to go over, we're going to take a bid from scratch, and we're going to do the whole thing in the system, print out your reports and everything else so that you have a complete bid done when we're through here. So I thank you for taking this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.